Howdy guys, welcome back to BRG Photography. This is Ben, and in today's video we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Here we have a full body retouch with a lot of skin showing, but specifically we're going to be focusing on one particular area, and that's going to be the lower half down here, where you can see we have some unevenness and kind of splotchiness in the legs. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how we can really smooth that out, get it looking almost a bit hyper realistic, which I think will work really good for this kind of image. And yeah, let's just go ahead and just jump right in. All right, guys, welcome back. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I've already done a few basic cleanups. For example, I cleaned up the seamless backdrop. That just involved me making a mask and then using a normal paintbrush to kind of paint over the background just to kind of smooth out the wrinkles and shadows in the paper. And then I also did some basic cleanups here. As you can see, I just removed some of these clothing lines, I guess the lines left behind by her clothes. And then I removed a few of the moles and freckles. And I also did a little bit of retouching on the underarm, and we'll probably go back and clean that up when we get to our dodging and burning step. And then on the face, I just want to remove that little dimple down there on the chin. But I wanted to make sure I keep all these natural laugh lines and skin texture. So that basically leaves us with the main part of the video, which is going to be really smoothing out this leg texture. Now, because we are doing a full body retouch as opposed to just a face portrait, we can actually be a bit more heavy-handed with our retouching just because we don't see at much up close detail. And I think particularly with this kind of image, it really lends itself to a bit of an extreme edit just because of the nature of the photograph. We have this beautiful fitness competitor. She's kind of oiled up for the photo shoot. We have her muscles shining and sheening, and it looks really cool. So we can be a bit more extreme than we normally would be with a normal portrait retouch. So with all that being said, let's just get started. So if we come down here and look at the area that we want to work on, it's mainly going to be down in this lower half in her legs. As you can see, we have some uneven skin tone, some patchiness in the skin. So what we want to do is we want to even that out. Now we could do our normal dodge and burn method, and that would totally work. But because we are working with such a large area, I think it's just going to take a while, and it's going to take a bit longer than I would like to spend on it. And also, because this is this leg, there's not too much high frequency detail, which means that we can be a bit heavier with our edits. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our old school frequency separation method. Now, before I do that, I'm going to need to merge all these layers down into one new pixel layer. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm also going to make a mask, and you'll see why in a second. But let me go ahead and switch to my selection brush tool and just kind of quickly go over her. Now make sure you are on the new selected layer, because if we're not on that layer, you notice it doesn't magnetize to the edges. So make sure you are on that pixel layer. That way the selection brush tool kind of like snaps to the edges really nicely. And if we kind of go over, hold down the option key, just paint that back in. I'm not going to be too precise with this mask just because of what we're going to be using it for. I'm not going to be too worried about that, but I think that looks okay. And let's go ahead and click refine. And I'm going to look at it, and you can see here it kind of missed a little spot. We can just paint over that like so. It's probably going to pick up a lot of that bracelet in this kind of little corner here. Again, I'm not these parts I'm not even really concerned about. I'm just doing it just out of habit, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and switch to black and white, and I can see more clearly what areas it picked up and didn't pick up. I want to make sure it at least picks up that elbow. I'm going to switch to my foreground. That's going to paint in white, basically telling Infinity Photo, hey, this is what I want to be in the mask. You can see it kind of picked up all this bracelet not very well, but that's fine. I'm not too worried about it. I'm not even gonna really mess with it. I could come over here and just kind of clean it up, select background, and say, hey, that's the background, and it'll do a pretty decent job. But I want to make sure definitely the legs are masked out pretty nice, and it looks like they are. There's a few little stray pixels here and there, and maybe just a little bit like so, but I think that's gonna be fine. Okay, so that's my mask. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and change the output to a mask, hit apply, and then I'm going to take that mask out real quick. I'm going to use it later. So now as that new pixel layer selected, I am going to do frequency separation. And as you notice, you get your high and low frequency slider. So if you remember correctly, the goal here is to preserve as much detail in the high frequency layer as we can, while still being able to affect what we want to down here. So if I go too high, you're going to see that that area that we want to correct is being protected in the high frequency layer, so we don't want that. So we're going to lower the slider down to a point where we no longer see that patchiness and uneven skin tone in the high frequency layer. And maybe it looks to go away around 2.57 or something like that. Let's try 2.6. And you can see that it's here to work on and it's not being there, which means this is being protected. Okie dokie. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hit apply. And we're going to be presented with two new layers, a low frequency layer and a high frequency layer. With the low frequency layer selected, I'm going to go ahead and make a brand new layer. Then I'm going to actually take that mask and attach it to that new layer, making sure that your blue bar is kind of more toward the right. And then I'm going to grab those three and just group them together and just call this we'll call it leg frequency separation. Okie dokie. And with our mask turned on, so now we can start painting in this leg. The reason why we have the mask is that means that if I am, let's go to a paintbrush tool here. If I start painting, I'm gonna just stay in her legs and I don't have to worry about getting close to the edge or accidentally painting on the gray paper. So when I say painting, that's what we're actually going to be doing, is we're going to be actually painting. So as opposed to using a healing brush or a clone stamp tool or dodge and burn, we're just going to basically repaint her leg in a sense. So as you know, I like to work with the high frequency layer off. For whatever reason, this helps me see what I can affect. And with a paintbrush, and before we do that, we are going to switch to our eyedropper. Let's choose a radius around maybe 5.5 just for this one, or 5 by 5. And going back to my paintbrush, I can hold down the Alt or Option key, hover around, and I'm going to get an area that I can sample from. So what I want to do is, why don't we start with just this kind of area right here. So you do have to kind of look at it and say, okay, is this dark area the area that I don't want, or do I want this dark area to be where this light area is? I'm going to say that these darker areas look out of place, which makes me feel that it should be more around this, maybe around like kind of this tone around here. So I'm going to sample from somewhere around that area, and then with my paintbrush, I am just going to start painting. Now, this is where you have to be careful, because I don't want to just paint the whole thing. If I just paint the whole thing with this one color, you're going to see, yeah, it smoothed everything out, but we have completely lost all contrast in her and just even detail in her skin. It kind of looks like a bad Instagram filter where it just kind of smooths out everything into oblivion. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to continue to paint and keep sampling from different areas of the leg to kind of basically repaint her leg. So again, I'm going to go ahead and maybe sample from down here and maybe just kind of like do some brush strokes and paint here. Then maybe on this darker area, I definitely want to sample from an area down here and kind of darken up and make sure that edge is looking nice. And just I'm constantly moving my sampling tool around to make sure that I am painting the right color in the right area. Obviously, you don't want to sample from here and then try to paint that, because you get that, and vice versa. You don't want to grab from here and start painting something really dark. So you want to try to look at the underlying base and say, okay, this is what is here. This kind of dark tone is this area, so I'm going to paint with that color. Around this area, I'm going to paint with that color. And yes, you can be a bit creative. So say, for example, there's a kind of, you can kind of see here, oops, this kind of white lighter area, just kind of going across this darker area. I could just basically get rid of that, sample from that dark area, and just kind of paint and just kind of make it one even thing, getting rid of that little line there. But you don't want to get too crazy where you kind of reshape the leg. I mean, you can do that. If you're going for a really hyper realistic look, you can totally do that. I like to try to keep it looking as natural as I can. But like I said in the beginning, this picture does kind of lend itself to a bit of a more hyper realistic look just because of the kind of photo it is. We have this really beautiful fitness competitor, muscles shining. You know, we can go a bit extreme trying to keep it within the realm of reality, but it can be a bit more heavy-handed with our strokes here. Let me just do a little bit more and we'll turn it off and on. We can see what we've done. Let's see if we can get that looking like so. And if we don't get it totally perfect here, we can always do some small tweaks and corrections in dodge and burn, but this is going to allow us just to work a lot faster. And another thing you can do here is, you notice this highlight right here, it's a bit bright. If I go ahead and turn on our high frequency, it's actually kind of one of the brighter areas in the picture, and the eye kind of naturally goes to the bright areas of the image. So if I want to knock that down a little bit, we can also do that with our frequency separation. I'm going to make a brand new layer, and let's just go ahead and sample maybe from this lighter highlight and just paint over it like that. And as you can see, that knocks the highlight down, but we've still kept all that kind of nice texture, so it still looks pretty believable. And you can see maybe I like that, where I feel like, okay, the highlight is still there, but it's not really distracting. My eye is not going directly to that bright highlight. So let's look at the leg. So what we've done so far is we've done that. And I think that still looks pretty good. It still looks pretty believable. There's still a little bit of like unevenness, but that kind of adds to the realism. And if you really felt you went a bit too far, of course, you could always lower the opacity. Maybe, oops, that's the wrong layer. Maybe bring back some of that unevenness, whatever is going to suit your image. But you can see something around that. Let's go to 100%. And let's just go ahead and do the other leg really quick. I'm going to turn off my high frequency layer just because that's the way I like to work. And maybe just sample from here, kind of paint. And maybe grab something around that area. Yeah, so in a way you are literally painting. I like to kind of leave a little bit of the under layer visible, but I know that there are some people who will literally just repaint the whole leg to make it kind of look how they want it to look, and then they might adjust the opacity and do things like that. Now with this method, usually you do lose a little bit of contrast, as you can see. We did maybe lose, not too much, but if you did lose some contrast, like you can see here, it's quite dark, and then we did kind of like make it a little bit lighter. We could always go in and try to, go a bit darker and maybe just kind of bring that contrast back. But you could also do a separate curves layer just for the legs to help bring that contrast back. But as you can see, I can move pretty fast, and once you kind of get used to and kind of know what to look for, you can move pretty quickly with this method, and it's a lot faster than having to dodge and burn the whole thing, especially on an area like the legs where there's just not too much detail that we really have to worry about. These knees are a bit dark. We could always just lighten those up, grab a color, just kind of paint over in general, and you can see that really lightened up the knees, maybe a bit too much. So let's bring it back a little bit, something like that. And because we actually did mask out the whole body, we could do other parts of the body that we feel. Maybe want to just even that out a bit here. Maybe let's just make this color, just kind of do like so. Stomach looks fine. This is a really good way just to kind of really smooth out certain areas of the skin. There's a little bit of patchiness here in the chest area. We can just kind of go over here and just even it out. That elbow we had previously, maybe if we don't really like that super bright highlight, we can grab a lighter color and just kind of paint over that. And you can see it's going to knock it down a little bit. And because we have a mask, I'm not really worried about going over the edge. Yeah, that looks fine. We could also do some of the underarm repair, maybe kind of like lighten up this dark part under the underarm, do things like that. There's a little weird shadow here. I don't know if that's a muscle or maybe just the oil not being rubbed in all the way, but we can just kind of lighten that up, get rid of that like so. And yeah, I think you see where I'm going with this. Is like, this is a really, maybe like for example, this neck shadow. Now this neck shadow is pretty harsh. If we don't like that, let's lighten it up. Let's sample a lighter color and just kind of go over that. And you can see that it just kind of gets rid of that harsher neck shadow. Now again, we know it's gone, but like if you look at it like that, you know, you're not going to know, hey, you know, I think her neck shadow should come further down. You're not going to know. So you can actually get away with certain things that, you know, maybe you can't in, well, that are realistic, but because this is a photo, we can kind of do whatever we want. Her face looks pretty good. We could just come over here and dodge and burn some of that, which we might do later. But I think for that, you can see if I turn off our group. So that was the before and that was the after. And we really just kind of smoothed out everything, still keeping it looking nice and clean and realistic. But we've just really smoothed out that. Like you can still see there's a little bit of darker areas left behind. And if I really wanted to, I could come over there and dodge and burn that. But yeah, you know how dodge and burn goes. So I'm not going to explain that. So actually, I'm going to just leave it here for this video. We do have other things we could work on. We could do dodge and burning on the face, color grading, all that kind of stuff. But basically in this video, I just wanted to show you that one technique, how you can quickly cover large areas of skin, especially when it's not the face where it's not going to be too scrutinized with painting with frequency separation. And you can still get a really good look. And especially for something like this, it looks really fantastic, I think. And that's going to be all. So if you guys are interested, I could make the continuation where I actually do dodging and burning. But for the most part, I mean, it's already pretty much done. I mean, she already looks fantastic. I don't have to actually do too much more. So we're pretty much near the final image here. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it's been a while since my last one, but hopefully I'll be more consistent about making videos. And yeah, thank you very much for all your comments. Let me know if there's certain videos you want to watch or certain techniques you want me to go over again. I'll be happy to make videos on that. But until then, I will see you the next time. All right, guys. Peace.